Hey there, this is Veena from Custard Cake, the channel that's about baking and much more. A warm welcome to my channel. Many of you asked for an Easter cake and I've picked an attractive and soft one. It's one of my favorites. It's a classic showstopper kind of cake that looks much more difficult to make than it really is. It's a soft chocolate marble cake, which though made without eggs, is amazingly tasty. I'll tell you how you could modify it to include eggs, but I urge you to first check it out the way I'm making it today. This marble cake is far different from the ones I enjoyed growing up, that we make by ladling spoonfuls of vanilla, chocolate, and maybe a pink-colored batter in a random pattern in the baking pan and get a multicolored cake. This kind of marble cake is more aptly called a zebra cake, and you can see why. Just stick to one important tip I'll be giving you, and I assure you, you won't go wrong with this cake. So now, let's get started making a super delicious, super soft chocolate marble cake right now at Custard Cake. The batter for this cake can be whipped up in just a few minutes, but as with all cakes, we'll start by preparing the baking pan. This is a 6-inch pan that I first greased with oil all over and then lined only the bottom with parchment paper. Then I greased the top of the parchment paper and dusted the whole pan with maida or all-purpose flour. Next, let's prepare some instant buttermilk for our cake. This is half a cup plus 1 tablespoon of warm milk. To this, I'll add 1 teaspoon of white vinegar. You could use lime juice instead. Give it a quick stir and then cover and keep it aside for around 10 to 15 minutes. The buttermilk will add to the flavor of the cake. Now let's sift 1 cup of maida along with 1 teaspoon of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Let's mix this well first and then sift it. And set it aside. In this bowl, I have half a cup of oil. Use any cooking oil without a strong smell. The oil will keep the cake moist and soft for many days. To it, I'll add half a cup of sugar. I measured the granulated sugar first and then powdered it. Let's also add in a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and then whip this well for at least a minute and try and incorporate some air into the mix. I'll now add in the buttermilk and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and whip everything again. To make this cake with eggs, beat in 2 small eggs at this stage, but reduce the milk to half the quantity. Next, we'll add the flour mix in 2 portions and fold it in with a spatula. Till the batter is smooth and free from lumps. Finally, we'll add in 2 tablespoons of milk powder to further enhance the taste and mix this too nicely into the batter. Now comes my important tip. The batter should be neither too thick nor too thin and should fall in ribbons like this. If it's too thin, add in a little flour, and if it's too thick, add in a little milk, but bring it to this consistency. We'll now divide the batter roughly into 2 almost equal parts. I've already divided it, and this portion is very slightly less than the other part because we have yet to add cocoa powder to this part. Here I have 1.5 tablespoons of cocoa powder and to it I'll add 3 teaspoons of very hot water. This will help to bloom the cocoa and draw out its flavour and make the batter more chocolatey. Let's mix it well into this portion of the cake batter. We'll have to add 2 tablespoons of each batter alternately to the cake pan. But let me show you the batter consistency again, because it's important. If the batter is too runny, the chocolate and vanilla portions will blend together and you won't get distinct stripes in the cake. Let's first add 2 tablespoons of the vanilla batter to the center of the pan and spread it out a little. Then let's add 2 tablespoons of the chocolate batter on top of the first vanilla layer. Like this. And tap the pan a little to help the batter spread. You'll have to tap it like this for the first few layers. Continue adding the 2 batters alternately, but don't fuss too much about the shape of the layers. They don't have to be perfect circles. And if some layers join like this here and there, don't bother about it. You'll get more realistic zebra stripes. Continue till you use up all the batter. I still have around a teaspoon of the chocolate batter left, but that's okay. We'll now tap the pan a few times to release any air bubbles and let the layers spread properly. You could bake the cake just as it is, but we'll go a step further. For now comes the creative part, where you'll have to use a toothpick or a skewer to make a design just on the top. But it's easy. Let me show you how. Dip the skewer tip around half an inch into the batter and draw it from the edge to the center. Repeat this in the opposite direction. Remember to wipe the skewer tip clean each time with a paper napkin. Now let's repeat the process and divide the top into 4 quarters. Then let's draw lines through the center of each quarter. Till we've formed 8 petals. You could leave it at this, but I'm going to make 16 cuts by now drawing lines in the opposite direction from the center to the edge through the middle of each segment. Like this. The cake can be baked in the oven or on the stove top in a kadai or pressure cooker without applying pressure. Such cakes don't brown on the top, and the contrast between the chocolate and vanilla layers will stay this way even after baking. In the oven, however, the cake will brown on top. I'll bake this in my preheated oven at 160 degrees centigrade, that's around 325 Fahrenheit, till a skewer inserted into the center comes out clean. My cake took 35 minutes to bake, but it got a little over-browned on top. Mine being a small oven, I usually check my cakes after 3/4 of the baking time and cover them with some foil or parchment paper if they are browning too fast. This time I got caught up with clearing up things and washing up the utensils I used for baking this cake and forgot. But you please check on your cake after around 25 minutes, especially if you have a small oven or yours is a convection oven with a fan where cakes bake faster. I'm covering useful baking tips like this in my new YouTube Shorts series on cake baking fundas. Do check it out. One funda every week. Now back to our cake. Let me repeat the skewer test for you. We let the cake cool a little in the pan for around half an hour and then invert it onto a wire rack. After half an hour, the cake is still a little hot. And the parchment paper is stuck to the bottom of the pan. It's a soft cake. So we'll first cool it on this wire rack for around 15 minutes more and then cut it. It's now only slightly warm, so it's safe to cut it. You can see the distinct zebra stripes. And like I told you, it's a soft and tasty cake. It's a must-try kind of cake and would make a nice and soft Easter cake as well. Now let me cut a thin slice and taste it. Simply, utterly delicious. I repeat, it's not difficult to make this chocolate marble cake at all. So do make it at home. You'll be so glad you did. Please subscribe. And till we meet again, happy baking and happy Easter.